This is the 21st century classroom. With the Nearpod mobile classroom, teachers can easily engage their students through the use of mobile devices. Teachers can create interactive presentations anywhere with the Nearpod cloud-based content tool. Then, in the classroom, teachers use the Nearpod dashboard on their iPad to share multimedia content, launch interactive experiences, and manage the presentation flow on each student device. With the Nearpod dashboard, teachers control the activity of all the students' devices and obtain detailed information in real time from each student and the class as a whole.
Like if you get it wrong, only the teacher knows.
Students submit responses and interact with the presentation on their mobile devices.
Like drawing all the words.
Students receive and interact with the content on their own mobile touch devices through the Nearpod app.
This is wonderful.
Multimedia content and real-time results hold the students' attention, encouraging them to participate more in class.
This is really good. It made it really easy to use.
And that's not all. Nearpod offers a reporting tool with detailed real-time and post-session information about the students' performance and interactions. This is Nearpod. Create your free account and start using it today.
Nearpod in my classroom, and actually my kids love it because they think I'm controlling everything. It's really fun. And also for me, it's really good. It forces me to not lecture for an entire class period like I would with a PowerPoint and a smartboard in the front of the room. I'm walking around. I can put in the interactive features of the drawing. They love drawing, and then being able to share the correct answer and guessing who did it. Nearpod is a wonderful, wonderful tool that really engages the students. They like looking at something in front of them. I use it with my iPad cart versus everybody looking at the front of the room and you've got the kids sleeping in the back. I don't have that anymore. And I really like the homework feature for my kids that are absent or that just need to go back over notes or didn't get them all. I can assign them the homework and they go through and get the same presentation that they would get in class. I love Nearpod.
Okay, so now that I've given you a little bit of background information on what Nearpod is, I hope you're excited to go ahead and create your own to totally get your students engaged in the lessons that you are teaching. So we'll give it a try. Let's get logged in here. You'll want to go to nearpod.com. Okay, this will bring you to their homepage, and we're going to click the sign in button to get signed in. Now I've already created an account, so I'm going to just sign in here, and you could type in your username or your email and your password, or I just sign in with my Google. So if you do not have a Nearpod account already set up, you want to click the sign up tab to create your free account. Okay, so we'll get signed in here and I will show you what Nearpod is all about. Alright, so this is their home screen here. What would you like to do? They've got several different tabs here. My library is where all of your created Nearpods are kept, or if you happen to either purchase or use some of the free Nearpods that are created, this is where they're stored. Kind of like books are on a bookshelf, here are your Nearpods in your library. Okay, the Explore tab, that's where you can go and find a Nearpod that aligns with something that you're teaching if you don't have time to create one. There's several free out there. There's hundreds that you can even purchase. So if you don't have time to create one, you can go ahead and find one that goes along with your curriculum. The Join tab here, if you want to join a session, I'll get into that a little bit later, because when we get to teaching with Nearpod, your students are going to have to join the session that you're teaching so they have access to your presentation. The Create tab, you can just, if you want to create a Nearpod, you'd click there and just go ahead and get started rather than going through your library. And we're going to be doing that. And the last tab here is Reports. I will get into this later as well. Once your students complete the Nearpod presentation, there's different things you can put in the Nearpod that really gets the students involved, and then it can break it down into different reports so you can see if they're missing certain questions, if you need to go back and reteach anything. Okay, so we're going to get started by creating a Nearpod. So we're going to click the Create button, and here we have it says Untitled Presentation. That's where we're going to name our presentation. A few quick things here. We're going to add a slide. You can delete slides, preview it, and there's even some more options once we get into actually creating the presentation. So I think we'll just start here by naming our presentation, and I'm going to make one that I'm actually going to be using with my kiddos. We're getting ready to start a landform unit, so I'm going to name it Landforms, and we're just going to start by adding a slide. It's really a lot like PowerPoint or Google Slides if you've ever used that. So we clicked on Add a Slide, and we're going to start with Add Content, and I just want to add a slide, and we can just start adding our information. So I'm going to type landforms. There are many landforms that cover the earth. Okay, so it's basically whatever information you want to get across to your students, you're going to put into your slides. So this is just a good introductory slide. I would like to add an image, so I'm going to click right down here on Image, and you can go anywhere to get an image. I've already got a file folder set up, so I'm just going to browse my files. It's kind of nice to know ahead of time what you're going to be working on, so you can then go and gather some materials first. So I just saved it actually to my desktop in a folder called Landforms, so I have got all my pictures here ready to go, and then you can just double click and it should drop right in, and there you have your picture that can go on the back of that slide. So there's our first slide. That's all the information I want to add. So then I'm going to click Save. Okay, lets you know that your slide has been added, and then you can add another one. Okay, so we're going to add another one, and I'll just show you real quick here. We'll just do another one. We'll start mountain. Just start, I think there's like 9 different landforms I'm going to do with my students. For sake of time and showing you the basics of how to create a Nearpod, I'm not going to go through all of them. Let's see. A mountain is a very high hill. Okay, I'm going to add an image, browse my files. Your folder should pop up already since you've already opened it. If you've pre-selected your images, which I would suggest doing, it makes it a lot easier. And there it is. You've got your nice title at the top, your definition, and a picture to go with it in the background. Okay. I'm going to create a couple more quickly, so then I can show you what other kind of content we can add. Alright. A hill is a piece of land that rises above the land around it. Okay, again, I'm going to throw in a picture. I hope you are finding this to be very simple. I know when I first learned how to use Nearpod, it was very simple, and therefore I love using it. And there you have another slide created. Okay. All right. I'm just going to do one more slide for us. Valley. A valley is lowland between mountains or hills. Again, I'm going to throw in a photo. Kids really like this. Okay, there's my valley, and boom, there you have it. Okay, now that's how you would create these slides to get your information across to your students. Just plain information. The next thing I want to do, you can add an activity. Instead of adding content, you can add an activity. Now, earlier in the video, I listed some features that Nearpod has where you can ask students an open-ended question, you can poll the class, you can give them a quick quiz, or you can have them draw something. There's also fill in the blanks and a memory test. I personally have never used the memory test yet. I'm fairly new to Nearpod. I think I've created 2 or 3 to use with my students so far. But it's such a good program that I just felt the needed to be shared. So I think I am going to poll the kids. So we click on poll, and we're going to just type a question. So we can ask them, what is a valley? Okay, and then you just put in some answers. So the question is, what is a valley? We can put a very high hill. We can put lowland between mountains, and there's this add answer if you want to give your students more of a choice. So we can put a lake. Okay, and if you wanted to, we can add an image here. It's usually kind of helpful. We'll just throw in a picture. The picture clues are really helpful, especially for your struggling students, just giving them that visual cue. We're going to go ahead and save it. And it'll take you back to that main page here and tell you that your poll was added. Okay. Let's add another slide here. And we're going to talk about a gulf. Okay, now we have our definition, and I'd like to put in a picture. Okay, and let's see, here I have my Gulf. Double click that and it'll drop it in, and remember, having that picture is very helpful. It gives those visual learners exactly what they need to help them retain the information. Okay, so you see we started with the first slide. Okay, we've got all that. If you wanted to, you can move slides. So you just click and drag if you wanted it in a different area. In this case, not really. I kind of created them in the way that I would like them. So I'm just going to move that back. Okay. All right. Let me show you a couple different we'll add another activity here. I like this one. It's called Draw It, and you can type the directions, what you want your students to do. So I'm going to tell the kids to circle at least 2 landforms in this picture. And then we want to add an image. We can browse files. That's just the one I always choose because I always have my photos ready to go ahead of time. It saves time. And let's see, we're going to use this picture of the map. And then we're going to save it. So when the students are sitting through this presentation and they get to that slide, they're going to be able to use their finger or their mouse, depending on what kind of device they're on, to actually draw on their screen so that they can actually follow those directions and do that. Okay. So that is like the basics of creating a Nearpod. Like I said, I'm not going to go through the whole presentation there because there's some other things that I need to show you within Nearpod. So I'm going to stop making my slides there. So when your presentation is all finished, you've got your slides in the order that you want them, you're going to click the Publish button down here on the lower right part of your screen. So we'll publish that. And then you can change the name here if you want to, write a description. You can even say what grade it's for. Okay, click a subject. This would be social studies. And then you're going to click publish. And then the program will take you to your library, and here you can see here's landforms. This is the one we just created. Okay, you can see the other ones I've created, and I also have some just some helpful tutorials that I found here on Nearpod that helped me really get to learn how to create a presentation. Okay, so that's how you make your presentation, and I'm going to now walk you through actually presenting it to your students. Alright, now that we have created our Nearpod, we're ready to go teach our lesson. So now comes the part where we get to share it with our students, whether they're on a laptop, a desktop, or if you happen to have iPads in your classroom. So here we are in our library, and we just created landforms. So I am actually going to be showing this one. So when you hover over it, you see that a little menu pops up. We're going to click on Live Session. It takes just a moment. And then it will pop up this pin, and then that's like the code that your students have to type in so they have access to the presentation. So you want to make sure to have that accessible to your kids. It pops up a new pin every time you start the session. So I found it useful to just go ahead and write it on the board, you know, kind of have it ready ahead of time, write it up on the board so that the students can then type it in so they can join the session. Okay? And then this is what's going to be appearing on either your computer or your iPad, depending on what kind of device you're using. And then you have complete control over what the students are seeing on their device. By using these arrows here on the side, you can go forward and backward through the slides that you made. So you actually have that control over the students, yet they're actively engaged because of the polls that you put in there, or the open-ended questions, the drawing. I found that the kids really love the drawing slides. So it's really, Nearpod is just an awesome tool for teachers to use to deliver their content. So you can read this as a whole group or have kids read it. You know, sometimes my kids like to popcorn read the slides. It just is really totally up to you. But when you're done discussing the slide, you just click the arrow key, and then it will change automatically on their device. So you would go through all the slides, you know, depending, the pace would depend on what your students are capable of. Okay, so I'll just kind of click rather fast through here. And then this screen, this is going to show up for the question will show up for the students. So what is a valley? And then they're actually going to choose their answer, and then there's a submit button, and it'll ask if they're sure they want to submit their answer. And as the students are submitting their answers, their names will show up here under student, and then what choice they chose for their answer. And then this circle here will fill in with some colors based on their answer. It's not filling in now because we're not actually having any active students going through this presentation, but if you were to be doing this with your students, that information would fill in. And earlier I had mentioned the reports tab. I'm going to show you when we go into reports, it will break down your presentation by question where the students get to answer, and so then you can use that data to really focus maybe your following up lessons on any questions that the kids really missed. You would know what to reteach, or if they all got it correct, you'd be like, man, they really understood that content. So this is a very useful piece. And then we would just move on. Actually, I forgot, when we're here at this screen, the teacher has the ability to hit the share button, and then on the students' devices, this image would show up, and it would show the students how their classmates answered. Now, not individually, wouldn't show individual students, but it would say like 50% of the class said that a valley was a very high hill, or maybe 10% only answered lowland between a mountain. So then they can kind of see where their answer fell in with their classmates. Then we would just finish our presentation. And then on this one, this is where we inserted the picture of the map. Circle at least 2 landforms in this picture. Now, as the students are doing this, this is the draw it aspect of the Nearpod. Now, when the students draw it, they can then submit it when they're done, just like they did with that question, and they would pop up. The little screens would pop up here on your device, and you can see how the students are answering. And then you'll be able to actually click on a student's response, and you can choose to share that out to the whole class. So if you have a student who maybe circled all the landforms you've been studying, you can share that out to the classmates. Just another way to teach all those different landforms. Like you can say, oh, Bobby, he was able to circle all 9 landforms, and you can share that out, and so the students can see where all of those 9 different landforms are in that one picture. Or, you know, if you have a struggling student who's sometimes a little slower with grasping the concept of things, maybe they were able to circle 2 of the landforms that you've taught. So maybe you want to share those, his answers out or her answers out, and that would really boost their confidence. Like, yeah, I can do this. Look at my teacher, she's sharing my answer. So just a great tool to help with that. Okay, and then when you're finished with the lesson, right up here in the middle where it says Nearpod, there's a little arrow. You want to click that, and then you can click on End Lesson, and it's going to ask you, do you want to end this session? This will remove your students from the presentation. So this no longer will they have access to the presentation, and then it takes you right back to your library. Okay, and now I think it's time for us to go and look at reports. So we're going to go here to the home key. You can see where I'm clicking. and it takes you back here. We're going to click on reports, and we're actually going to look at some reports of another Nearpod that I did with my students, seeing as I just created the one with the landforms. We haven't had actual students go through the session. So I've actually got two here that I've done. We're going to do this one called patriotic symbols, and you just click on the arrow here on the right and it'll drop down a menu. We'll choose this one with 19 students, and it just kind of breaks down. It's a session report. It breaks it down by question. So there's a summary page. You can go right to the quizzes, the polls, the open-ended questions, or the draw-it questions that you've done. We'll scroll through here a little bit. It could have all the kids' names here, and then it tells you how they did on each question. So that's one way to break down the information. Or you can go by the actual question. So this one had quite a few quiz questions. And see, this is what I was talking about, how that would fill in with how the students answered. And this is something that you could share when you're in the actual presentation. You could share that out with your students so they can see how they did. And then here it will have, again, the student's name and then how they responded. Okay? And it looks like most students got this question correct, so that's probably something that you wouldn't need to reteach. Okay? And then, let's see here, we would click on that arrow again, and if you wanted to see another question. All right, this question was, what are the colors of the American flag? And 100% of the kids got that correct. So definitely they understood that content, that the American flag is red, white, and blue. I'll show you an example of a draw it question we had. We use this as an example in our landform Nearpod that we just created. It says circle your favorite patriotic symbol. And so I told you that the kids' drawings would actually pop up on your screen. So this is what it would look like in the middle of your presentation. But remember, it didn't today because we didn't have any active students. So this is what it would look like. So for this particular presentation, the kids had to circle their favorite patriotic symbol. And here's an example. You could click on it. And so the kids are actually able to draw on the actual photo. And so I remember when I did this with the kids, I shared out the answers, and some of them, they really liked this unit on patriotic symbols, and so they circled more than one. So they really liked to see what their classmates had chosen. And then you can just click close, and that will go away. Let's see. Here's another one. The kids have options as to what color pencil they want to draw with, or how thick the line can be. So they do have some options. It's pretty fun, and it gets them really interested. So that was the example of the draw it. And we did have an open-ended question in this presentation, which is another feature. Name your favorite patriotic song. And then it says that 100% answered the question here. You can type in, the students could actually type in their answer. It's kind of fun to see. And I shared these out, and the kids were really excited. Oh, like, oh, that was my favorite song too, or oh, I forgot about that one. It was kind of neat. So it really got the kids actively engaged in their lesson. Okay, we did take a poll. What's your favorite way to show patriotism? And there's another different colored graph here. So they had several different ways to show their patriotism. A lot of them were the same. And then we could see here, like, the most popular way to show patriotism in my class was the students like to wear red, white, and blue. So, all right. So I hope that's a good overview of the reports section of the Nearpod. It really shows how involved the students are. It really gets them to think about their learning and actually take ownership of their learning, because they need to be paying attention and involved, because the teacher has control of what's on their screen. So they need to make sure they're paying attention so they can get those questions answered before the teacher moves on. Okay, like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. It's christina.coy@bpsne.net. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. I'd be happy to sit with you to help you create a Nearpod. It's a very useful tool, and I hope you enjoyed this quick presentation, and good luck at creating your Nearpod. Thanks for watching.